Fresh protests have broken out in Pakistan over the anti-Islam film, which of course the US government has already disowned. There were violent protests yesterday very close to the US embassy. The army had to be called in, but now massive anti-US protests have been reported afresh in Pakistan's capital Islamabad. These are images that we are getting to you from there. Tear gas shells had to be fired to control the mob, but even that hasn't quite succeeded. Hundreds of people have surged into Islamabad to protest against the anti-US film. There are protests outside the US embassy, pretty much a repeat of what had happened yesterday as well. The army had to be drafted in to help the police, which was completely incapable of controlling the mob. Several thousands of people tried to lay siege to the US embassy. Some of them even tried to attack a five-star hotel. It was only the army which managed to somehow control the mob, but a fresh episode has been reported today from Islamabad. The protesters tried to lay siege to the US embassy, and these are the images that we are getting to you of those anti-US protests. Of course, America has been at pains to try and dissociate itself from that film, which has sparked outrage through many countries, and now the sparks of that fire have also reached Pakistan. Hamza Amir, our correspondent, now joins us on the phone line. First, give us an update about the ground situation right now, Hamza.
Well, it's a complete chaos situation across Pakistan in every major city. People have taken to the streets, and there are very violent reactions and very violent protests going on, even in the capital Islamabad, as people have entered into the red zone area, the diplomatic enclave, and also the area where parliament and presidency is located as well. And the police security officials have actually failed to manage the protesters, because they have come out in very big numbers. At the same time, tear gases have been fired. A few casualties have also been reported from all the major cities, which has also angered the protesters much more than they wanted to be. At the same time, they have also wanted to target the US consulates and US embassies across Pakistan, and they have actually been doing that because all the barriers that were set on ground in form of containers, in form of security, have been actually set aside and pushed aside by the protesters, and they are actually on the roads right now protesting against the anti-Islam movie that was produced by a Coptic Christian group.
PTI correspondent Raza Laskar also is with us on the phone line. Raza, who is leading these protests?
Well, that's a strange part. There doesn't seem to be any sort of organized leadership. There are senior people from the Jamaat-e-Islami, from various other religious groups, from the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, from Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party, who are in these protests. But on the whole, there doesn't seem to be anyone leading these groups of protesters in the different cities. And that possibly is one of the reasons why there has been so much chaos.
Hamza, and it is not just Islamabad to which these protests are restricted. In Peshawar, cinema halls were attacked. They were set on fire, and there was also violence reported after some people were injured, and at least one person was killed because of tear gas and gunshot wounds. What is the government's contingency plan, considering that the violence only seems to be spreading to other cities of Pakistan?
Well, actually, the government has failed to meet the sentiments of the people. The people have demanded an immediate closure of all operations of US-induced companies and US activities inside Pakistan. They have demanded that
unfortunately, some problem with the audio link with Hamza over there. But Raza, if I can put that question to you, is the government out of its depth when facing these protests, because they've only spread steadily from one city to the other?
Well, I think the government miscalculated on a couple of things. One, they thought their decision to declare Friday as the Love the Prophet Day would possibly take the edge off protests, and I think that was a big miscalculation. Also, I think, at least in cities like Islamabad and to some extent in Lahore, the government was totally unprepared for the scale of the protests that have broken out. I mean, we've had a terrible protest yesterday, very close to the diplomatic enclave. We had diplomats virtually being locked down in their missions within the diplomatic enclave. And we have a similar situation today with large numbers of protesters gathering outside the US consulate in Lahore, and once again outside the diplomatic enclave in Islamabad.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess, it does seem that the government wasn't totally prepared for the scale of the protest.
All right, Rizal Laskar, thank you very much for joining us.